After all mouth preparation has been completed on the patient, according to the treatment plan and the design as drawn on a diagnostic cast, a very accurate impression must be made of that patient and a very accurate master cast poured from that impression. The master cast must be as accurate as possible because the prosthesis framework will be made by the dental laboratory from that master cast. The master cast itself, when completed, should be bubble-free, should have clear definition, should have very narrow flanges, should be about a ½ inch to 1 inch thick. There should be an absence of any slurry from too much trimming on the model trimmer. Once we have the master cast and it has been accepted, we must transfer the final path of insertion and removal from the diagnostic cast to the master cast. The crown on the molar was constructed to this particular path of insertion, and the bicuspid was recontoured to this path. This path has been designated on the diagnostic cast by these tripod marks. If we can arbitrarily transfer these tripod markings to the master cast, then we can locate this path on the surveyor. To do that, we arbitrarily will mark these tripod marks by looking at the marks on the diagnostic cast, marking them on the master cast, now this is an arbitrary procedure, but it will be close to this path of insertion and removal. Once we have made these marks on the master cast, we will place the master cast in a cast holder lock the cast on the cast holder and take it to the surveyor. Then we must locate this horizontal plane at which these tripod markings were made back on the diagnostic cast. We have the 3 tripod marks on the master cast and the master cast located on the cast holder. This horizontal plane can be determined if we do not move the vertical spindle. It remains constant, and we move the cast on the cast holder to show that that point touches these 3 marks at the same time with no movement of the vertical spindle. That is the same path that was determined on the diagnostic cast. Another way to visualize that horizontal plane, if we put a cardboard joining those 3 spots and we lower the analyzing rod until it touches that piece of cardboard, it should touch the cardboard anywhere we go across here. This horizontal plane is constant. Now we have our final path of insertion determined by the tripod marks. The absolute final path will be determined by the parallel guide planes on the linguals of the abutment teeth. The bicuspid and across to the molar. These planes should be parallel to each other. At the same time, we will check the buckles of the bicuspid to see that we have adequate retentive undercut for the direct retainer, and the mesial buckle of the molar on the opposite side. When we have determined that this is our final path of insertion and removal, we will transfer the analyzing rod and proceed to draw the survey lines or heights of contour on these abutment teeth. The carbon rods that you have in your kit are round pieces of lead. It makes it easier if you would take the end of the lead, take a piece of sandpaper, and create a bevel. Once you have created the bevel, take the shield that is part of the kit and place the lead protected by the shield into the surveyor. Now you can see the shield and the lead with the bevel. The shield is there to protect the lead from breaking. Now the final path of insertion and removal is there. The cast is locked. The cast holder is locked. And we proceed to draw the survey line around the abutment teeth, completely around the abutment teeth. Any areas where any metal may be introduced into the mouth, the area of the indirect retainer, on the molar, and any tissue undercuts. Now, some of these marks or areas were located during the surveying of the diagnostic cast, so they should be easily located at this stage. If during this procedure you experience any difficulty in the cast holder moving on the surveyor base, if you add just a little bit of any acrylic powder, this is Forma-Tray powder, to the base and move the cast holder around, it'll allow this to slide very easily. Now, once you have located all of the survey lines, we transfer from the carbon marker to the 020 20 thousandths undercut gauge to locate the retentive undercut on the buckles of each abutment tooth. The essential thing to remember when you're locating a retentive undercut is that the shaft of the undercut gauge and the flange must touch at exactly the same time. So you put the shaft against the tooth and raise the flange until they touch. The point where the flange touches the tooth is exactly 20 thousandths of an inch of retentive undercut on this tooth. And if you will mark this point with a red pencil so you do not lose it. Now we switch to the other side, to the molar, and do exactly the same thing. As you can see on the molar, the shaft of the undercut gauge touches the molar at the same precise point as the survey line. If you raise the undercut gauge until both the shaft and the flange touch at that precise point is 20 thousandths of an inch of undercut on the mesial buccal of the molar. Once you have located the survey line and shown or delineated the retentive undercut, we start to draw the design for this appliance on this master cast. And we draw this very carefully using a brown pencil so it will not interfere with the black lines that we have drawn for the survey line. Now this line that we are drawing, or this design we are drawing at this point, will give the dental laboratory an exact design to follow when they are waxing up the framework. This is the completed design drawn on the master cast. See, the occlusal rests have been drawn, the extent of the lingual plate has been drawn, the indirect retainer, the major connector, the lingual plate, lingual bar, the reciprocal arm of the direct retainer on the molar, the occlusal rest, and the complete outline of the retentive arm of the direct retainer on the molar. As you can see here, the red spot is the 20,000ths of an inch retentive undercut, and that is at the gingival edge of the tip of the clasp. This is the survey line. Only the tip of the clasp should be beneath the survey line. The remainder of the clasp should be above the survey line and not retentive. On the opposite side, on the bicuspid, we have drawn the area of the wrought wire retentive arm. That point is 20,000ths of an inch undercut. And we should draw this entire clasp on this cast so the dental laboratory technician will know exactly where you want every component. At this stage, we will start to apply the blockout wax. This is a high fusing wax which will not melt during the duplication procedures performed by the dental laboratory later on. We need a number 7 spatula which we heat. Take up a little of the blockout wax and apply it to the master cast around the bicuspid so that every area beneath a survey line is covered. Now, not too much wax is needed, just enough to cover these areas of undesirable undercut. We will place this wax completely around the tooth under these survey lines, except in areas where we would have retentive undercut. In other words, the buccal of each abutment tooth. Once we have the wax on there, we must parallel that wax to the path of insertion and removal. And for that, we have placed the analyzing rod back in the surveyor. If we warm that analyzing rod slightly with an alcohol torch, and by slightly, I mean so that you can still touch it with your fingers. If you get it too hot, it will again melt this wax. And then, with a warm analyzing rod, go around the abutment tooth and remove all of the excess wax. What you have done essentially is paralleled all of this wax to the path of insertion, and you have removed all undesirable undercuts. Any excess wax beyond there can be flicked off. This is of no consequence. The wax around the abutment tooth is the important wax. Once we have completed that abutment tooth, we apply wax to the area of the indirect retainer. And then to the lingual of the molar. Any area shown by that survey line. That survey line shows you every undesirable undercut on these teeth, and they must be eliminated by this blockout wax. All of the blockout wax has been applied below all of the survey lines and has been paralleled to the path of insertion and removal. The tissue undercut has been eliminated with this blockout wax. The undercut underneath the reciprocal arm area on the molar has been eliminated. As you can see, there is no light showing. If we proceed around to the indirect retainer area, that has been eliminated. The undercut has been eliminated. Around to the bicuspid, there is no undercut remaining. They have all been eliminated. Once this has been done, we add a surplus of wax on the molar under the design as drawn to create a ledge. This ledge now will be duplicated in the investment cast, and the dental laboratory technician will only have to wax down into that ledge to reproduce this exact clasp that you have drawn on the cast and desire. Now, once we have added the excess of wax, with a sharp instrument, we will cut away the excess down to the design we have drawn. If this has been done correctly, the entire clasp you drew on the master cast will be exposed, and you will have a slight ledge of wax remaining at the border or outline of your clasp. Now, if there's any remaining blockout wax there anywhere on the cast as well as in this area, it can be removed, eliminated with a slight amount of chloroform on a cotton pellet. And there is your ledge created for your cast clasp on the molar. Now, when this has been done, the last bit of blockout we must do is in the area of the lingual plate, to cover all of the free gum margins of the lower anterior teeth, to prevent any impingement by the lingual plate metal and any wedging effect by that metal. We add this wax until all of the anterior teeth, free gum margins, are covered. All of the blockout wax has now been applied to the master cast to eliminate all undesirable undercuts as well as delineate this cast clasp on the molar. You see that the blockout wax has been applied to the tissue undercut as well as the linguals of the molar, the bicuspid for the indirect retainer, the lingual plate area, and the bicuspid direct retainer on the left side. One thing is left to be done as far as the blockout is concerned. On the edentulous side, on the bicuspid, we usually apply a little excess blockout wax at the distal buccal corner, just like that, so that the clasp arm, as it comes off of the bicuspid in the finished prosthesis, will be away from the tooth in that area, and thus prevent torquing that abutment tooth during function of the prosthesis. It does not take a lot of blockout wax. Once this has been done, we are, for all intents and purposes, through with the surveyor itself. And we will go to applying the relief wax. First relief wax that will be applied will be for the lingual bar, lingual plate area. And for that we use 30 gauge relief wax. 30 gauge adhesive relief wax. If you take that off the card carefully and apply it carefully to the entire extent of your lingual bar, lingual plate, This wax is adhesive and will stick to the cast, and usually, because it is 30 gauge, very, very thin, you can apply it to the entire extent of your design. You remove the excess wax beyond the design with a sharp instrument. Warming the instrument will help. And once you've removed all the excess, you can adapt it further with your fingers. Just the heat of your fingers will help adapt it. And then, with a warm number 7 spatula, start to seal the edges of this relief wax to your master cast. And you continue until all of the edges of this relief wax are sealed to the master cast. This will prevent the relief wax from lifting during the duplication process. The lingual bar relief wax has now been applied and sealed. Once this is done, we apply 24 gauge relief wax for the acrylic resin saddle area. Now this wax should be applied right along the line we have drawn for the finish line. This is the acrylic resin finish line, as you see here. And it should be applied in 2 pieces, one from the lingual, then another across the crest of the ridge area into the buckle area. So in the crest of the ridge area, it is actually 2 thicknesses of 24 gauge relief wax. With a warm spatula, we cut off the excess wax. And then, with the number 7 spatula warmed, we seal the lingual, distal, and buckle peripheries of this wax. We do not seal the anterior edge of the wax, the edge of the wax adjacent to the abutment tooth, and in this case the bicuspid. We also, with a warm spatula, seal the crest of the ridge area where we have the double thickness of 24 gauge wax. This area here for your acrylic resin finish line must be left untouched by heat. It must end up as a raised edge the entire extent, and this will be the acrylic resin finish line in the finished prosthesis. All of the blockout wax and relief wax has been applied to the master cast. Let us review the criteria involved in this procedure. First, we have located the final survey position accurately. Secondly, we have removed all undesirable undercuts by the use of blockout wax or relief wax. Third, we have provided adequate relief for lingual bar and for the acrylic resin saddle area. Fourth, we have accurately located the retention for the retentive arms on both abutment teeth. And fifth, we have accurately shown a ledge on the molar for the cast clasp, which will be incorporated in the prosthesis on that tooth. And finally, a dental laboratory work order must be made out in 4 copies for submission of your master cast to the dental laboratory for the actual fabrication of your prosthesis. This laboratory work order must be signed by one of the instructors before the dental laboratory will accept the case.